In the annals of history, there are tales of rulers who kept secrets close to their chests, some for power, some for love, some for survival. But none, perhaps, was as gilded as that of the king who wore a mask of gold. Welcome, friends, to our channel, where today we bring you the story of the king who never let anyone see his face. Imagine a king so afraid of betrayal that no one ever saw his face. Not his servants, not his generals, not even his wives. He ruled from behind a mask of solid gold, a mask that became both his shield and his curse. In the heart of ancient Persia, nestled between the mountains and the sea, stood a magnificent palace. Within its high walls lived a king whose name echoed through the ages, but whose face remained a mystery. From the time he took the throne, he shrouded himself in enigma. But as years passed, the enigma grew, transforming into an obsession. The king grew convinced that his face held the power of his reign. If his enemies could steal a glance at his countenance, they could control him, drain his life force, or cast spells that would turn his followers against him. Fearful and reclusive, he turned to the kingdom's finest artisans and demanded they forge a mask of pure gold, a perfect replica of his face. It was to be a visage of authority, impenetrable and eternal. As the molten gold cooled into shape, the king's paranoia intensified. When the mask was complete, he donned it, and from that day forward, no one ever saw his face again. What began as a means to quell his fears became a ritual of power. The king surrounded himself with an elite guard, soldiers sworn to secrecy who would punish any who dared approach the king without permission. Soon, it wasn't just the king's face that was hidden, but also the truth of his being. Years turned into decades, and the king, once a symbol of hope and prosperity, became a myth, a specter ruling over his people with an iron fist. The court that once buzzed with activity turned into a place of hushed tones and sideways glances. Even the courtiers had to bow before the king without looking up at his face, lest they incur his wrath. As the king aged, so did the mask, becoming tarnished and scratched. But he never allowed it to be removed, not for cleaning, not for repair, not even as he lay dying. The mask became his tomb, hiding his features from the world, but also concealing the truth from himself. They say the king died, believing his face would bring ruin upon his kingdom, unaware that in his obsession he had already brought ruin upon himself. When his son took the throne, he lifted the veil of secrecy, revealing the weathered face of the late monarch. To the shock of the kingdom, it was a face etched with time, yes, but not with evil or madness. It was a kind face, a face that had perhaps grown weary, not from fear, but from the burden of ruling. And so, the legend of the king with the golden mask became a tale whispered across the kingdom, a reminder of the perils of unchecked fear. In the bustling markets, the story went. The king's face was seen in the reflection of a pool. Not the face of a monster, but of a man. Perhaps it was a trick of the light, a fleeting glimpse, or maybe just a wishful reverie. But for a moment, a king was human, not a phantom, not a god, but a man who smiled, a man who ruled but could have been loved. Some say the king's mask remains in the palace, gathering dust, while others claim it was melted down, returning to the earth from which it came. But whether it's enshrined or scattered, the tale serves as a mirror to our own lives. We, too, wear masks, donning different faces for different situations. But how thin is the line between necessity and obsession? How do we ensure that the mask doesn't become our reality? The king with the golden mask may have met a tragic end, but his story offers a timeless wisdom. Power, like a double-edged sword, can protect and isolate. And the face we hide behind, a facade, can become the very thing we fear. So let us remember the gilded cage of the king with a golden mask, not as a cautionary tale, but as a guiding light, illuminating the fine line between strength and seclusion, between rule and tyranny, between king and God. For in the end, it's not our faces that define us, but the warmth of our hearts and the honesty of our smiles. And on that note, we wrap up today's story. Do you find this tale intriguing? Has it offered you some insight into the complexities of power and perception? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Your feedback is our inspiration. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep exploring the fascinating world of history and stories. Take care and goodbye.